My name's Steve and I love people who make things. We're a nation of inventive, inspiring makers.
This room alone will produce 100,000 items a year. But yeah, it used to be full of cows.
I'm on a mission to list the greatest products we make, because if we don't champion the skills on our doorstep, we risk losing them.
One of the biggest challenges we have here is our ageing workforce.
Join me as we hear stories from behind the factory doors.
My poor son, he jokes about it now. You used to make me sleep in a suitcase.
We never argue. Sure, we have a bit of a... Yeah, we have tense moments.
Together, let's make more makers. Welcome to the factory next door, and welcome to Walsall, a town just north of Birmingham. I'm actually fairly central, just on a street tucked away from the train station. I'm looking out over a brownfield site, a huge brownfield site. It's actually not completely empty. You can probably hear some of the demolition in the background. There's still half-built red brick factories here. It used to be covered in a number of very large leather factories, but they have long since gone. The developers who've taken over have got planning permission to turn it into flats, demolish them and turn it into flats. Walsall's actually got a very long history of leather work. And this week we're actually off to meet someone who's opened a leather factory recently in the area, making exquisite hand-plaited leather belts amongst other leather goods. Whilst I get out of this bitingly cold wind and head across Walsall, have a listen to what's coming up in this week's show.
I loved being a bomb disposal operator. I really got a kick out of it. I don't think there's a bigger adrenaline high on the planet than diffusing an IED.
Tell me what you do here.
As little as possible if I can get away with it, but don't tell the boss.
Literally called up the timber yard in Birmingham and called. I'm in Iraq, so it's a bit
And
difficult.
they're like, the line's quite bad.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, you're not kidding.
yeah. I feel a bit egotistical saying it, but kind of give something back to the community and kind of be a pillar of the community.
Do you ever have any sleepless nights, Alex?
I don't sleep. Alex Simpson, I am the founder and managing director of Beorma Leather Company.
Excellent. And how do I pronounce it? Beorma.
Beorma.
Great.
I get asked that by everybody, so that's. I'm glad about that. I'm glad that no one can actually pronounce it. So
Makes it distinctive.
Stays in your mind, yeah.
And so we've just come into the factory here. Give me an idea of the space.
It doesn't look it, but it breaks down into sort of four areas really. So we've got a large cage to the left-hand side, which has got all of our leather in, all of our fittings in, and all of our finished goods. As we come into the factory, we've got all the cutting area. On the right-hand side, we cut all of our belts and bags. And then on the left-hand side is all our small leather goods, wallets, purses, etc. And then the work flows down the factory, so it will get cut here, and then it will move down to the preparers. So the first people you'll see is our belt preparers who are plaiting our belts, and then on the right-hand side is all of our small leather good preparers. And then as it continues down is all of our sewing machines, so it gets finished off, and it'll end up on the left-hand side back in the cage for quality control and then packing and shipping.
I can see that a few people are already... I've arrived and they're leaving.
You have hit just tea break, tea break 10:15, which is, there's no change in that. I could have asked them to hold off, but I'd have been chased out the building, I think.
Great stuff, absolutely. And what is that extraordinarily loud noise I'm hearing?
Our air compressor, so a lot of our machines run on air, which is great. You've just turned up at the most noisiest time of the day as well. It's great when everyone's gone and you're the only one in the factory, and that does the noise. Still makes me jump, even now. We came to Walsall, and I can't remember what factory it was because I was like 12 at the time, and they gave me some leather to play around with, and then I made my brother a bag for his 16th birthday, which I would have been 13. So I made my very first bag at 13, and it's terrible, but it's great at the same time. It's great because it's so terrible. He's still got it. He's still got it. So and over the course of the next 20 years, I've made in various other bags, and we actually took a bunch of pictures of all the different bags that he's made him over the years, and we've sort of got a collection of, and you can see the quality increase over the years. But yeah, so at 13 I was sort of starting to gain this passion for it, and then just over the course of the years did it when I was in the army, would be sort of tapping away at a piece of leather in
in my room, and everyone like, what is this maniac doing? Like just playing around with leather. It's really weird, but yeah. And then I'd be, you know, wherever I was, Afghanistan or Iraq, sat in my room just sketching out designs, waiting to come home to play around with them. So I always knew that always wanted the semi-retirement plan was to come home and do this. I just never dreamed it was going to be as big as what this is right now.
Can I cheekily ask, why did you not go into leather? Why did you go into the army then?
That's not cheeky. I just think I was born to join the army. I don't know what it was. I was always going to join the military in one form or another. I joined at 21. I'm glad I left it a bit longer, but I probably should have joined a bit earlier. I think I just always wanted to be a soldier. I don't remember a time of me not wanting to be a soldier.
And then this is Ian, who will interrupt his break. I'm sure he won't mind. Ian, hello.
Ian, very nice to meet you. I'm disturbing your coffee break. I'm so sorry. Tell me what you do here.
As little as possible if I can get away with it, but don't tell the boss.
I'm really sorry, he was listening in there.
So I'm the start of the process. So basically the leather comes in through the door, goes into the warehouse. I get the skins out, start cutting them into panels, etc. for bags, or straps for belts and plaited belts and things like that.
Do you enjoy it? I realise Alex has stood right next to me here when I asked that question, hovering.
Before I worked in the leather trade, I worked for a small chain of off licences where basically someone gives you some money, you buy something, and you sell it to someone else for another amount of money, whereas the leather trades, you take a raw material and we turn it into something beautiful and then sell it on through that so you can actually see a product of your endeavour. It's not just a tick on a balance sheet, you can actually see something tactile, you can handle it, and yeah, it's great.
Bomb disposal during the day,
Yeah.
on an evening, you're designing leather goods.
Yeah. Pretty much, yeah. Sometimes during the day as well, but yeah. Quite a rare mix, I would suggest. And like I said,
Quite a rare mix.
it's kind of seen as an odd thing to do, I guess, but I think there's a lot of wonderful and interesting hobbies within people in the military. But yeah, I love both. I absolutely do. I loved being a bomb disposal operator. I really got a kick out of it.
Why did you love being a bomb disposal operator?
I don't think there's a bigger adrenaline high on the planet than diffusing an IED. Yeah, it's a really small niche world within the military. There's not many people to do it. It's got a real great camaraderie environment because of how sort of niche it is. And I just genuinely enjoyed the process of pulling IEDs apart.
Do you remember the moment where you thought, I'm going to have to say goodbye to this?
Yeah, I mean, literally. So I was home on leave, so I was working a rotation. So it was 3 months abroad, and then you'd come home for 3 weeks of leave. We were sat on the couch having a drink, and Lou said to me, "Would you mind pouring us a glass of Baileys?" Which I did. She tried it. She says, "Does this taste off to you?" And I had a sip. I was like, "No, it tastes fine." She's like, "Oh, maybe I'm pregnant." I was like, "Don't be ridiculous. That's a ridiculous statement." And surely, 3 weeks your body wouldn't have changed, that you would be able to taste the difference in the Baileys. Anyway, long story short, it was about 10 o'clock at night. I went up to the garage to get a pregnancy test. I didn't have any. She's like, "Oh, I'm probably being silly." Next day, I fly back to Iraq. That night, we have a phone call, and she's like, I'm going to do a test. And she tested positive pregnant. And I just started a 3-month rotation back in Iraq, which wasn't the best way to start that. But there and then, literally the moment I saw the blue cross on the test, I said to her, "I'm coming home." I was like, "I'll do 2 more rotations and I'll come home." But literally the moment we knew we were having a baby, I was like, "I'm not doing this anymore. There's no way."
How did you find the transition? Because, I've certainly read, and I'm sure lots of listeners have read about how it can be very difficult.
It's brutal.
Leaving.
It's brutal. It's really hard. You kind of go from being surrounded by people who are almost the same as you, like-minded wise, to on your own. And even if you're with your family, it's not the same as that. Finding a place in life that has the same sort of enjoyment and fulfillment of being in the military is very, very, very hard. I think I'm very lucky that I have this. I'm very lucky that I had a passion that I was able to turn into a business that then has grown into something else. But it's really, really hard. I don't know anyone who's left the army and has just found their feet. Saying I'm going to call it a day with the army was probably scarier. It actually was scarier than any day I've spent in the army, whether it's Afghanistan or wherever else. It's a terrifying prospect of what am I actually going to do? Does anyone actually think that what I've got to offer is worth giving me a job? So it's hard. It's really, really hard.
Did you have a really clear idea in your mind when you left that you were going to go straight into leather work?
Yeah.
You'd already had that all planned in your mind.
Yeah. So I said I always wanted to do it. It was always the case that that's what I would do. And when I made the decision to quit, I had two more. I would say we'll do two more rotations. And so I had effectively 2-3 month rotation periods to kind of get to grips with that. And I'd started setting things up in that process. So I'd, as soon as I come home, I built a workshop in the garden. That was the first thing. So I'd planned all that out. I'd even started ordering the materials on a hill in Iraq. 'Cause the only place I could get signal on my phone was on a hill, and it's American Air Base in Iraq. So I was like calling up the window company to say, can you deliver them on these dates? I'd been designing, over the years I'd had patterns and stuff that I wanted to work on, but I was like, I need to really narrow this down. So I sort of digitally designed all the patterns that I wanted to do when I got back, and I sort of created them. So I kind of hit the ground the moment I came back, almost running, and I think all the wood for the workshop got delivered 3 days after I landed back.
That's quite an image of you on a hill in an American base.
Yeah, in flip-flops and shorts, yeah.
Dialing up the local timber yard.
Yeah, literally, yeah. Literally called up the timber yard in Birmingham and called up the bifold door company and was like, these are the specs. Can you hear me? Is everything all right? Yep. This is what I'm trying to achieve. And then we're like, okay. I was like, I'm in Iraq, so it's a bit difficult.
And they're like, the line's quite bad.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, you're not kidding.
Yeah. It was good. It was fun.
Where do you get the leather from?
We buy it from, we've got sort of 3 major tanneries that we use. We've got a tannery in Italy, quite a famous tannery called Carlo. Beautiful vegetable tan leather. There's a tannery in Devon called Baker's. It's the oldest tannery in Europe. Used to be a tannery during the Roman times. It's changed a little bit since then, but still tan in a very traditional way. A beautiful, beautiful tannery. And then we buy a lot of our bridal leather comes from Ridgeway Leathers, who are the finishers. So they bring the leather in as a sort of natural vegetable tan leather, and they then finish it to the standard of bridal and the colour that we want it to. So infuse all the oils and the waxes into it and make this really beautiful, traditionally English bridal leather. This is our leather store.
So we've come into a little kind of caged section of the warehouse.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we have to have it caged for insurance purposes. I'm not a fan of cages, but it is what it is.
I'm going to probably state the obvious, so apologies. But is it, when you say it's caged for insurance purposes, is that because people will break in and steal your leather?
Hopefully not, but that was one of the clauses that the insurance policy had, was or anything that's sort of over a certain value or anything that's expensive should be locked away of an evening. When you're talking about English bridal leather, the bloom is the special thing that it has. It kind of, if left over time, these waxes come to the surface and give you this kind of powdery effect. And then they polish up and polish off to a super high shine.
What we're looking at is a huge piece of black leather, but it's got a kind of a white grey powdery coat, and this is the bloom.
So what the coat is effectively the grease that the finishers put into it. You can polish it all off, but then over time they will come to the surface again if the item's not used, and it creates what we call the bloom, which is these greases coming to the surface, which is this white powder. And that is when you're talking about English bridal. If it doesn't do that, then it's not real bridal leather.
And you've just rubbed with your hand vigorously on part of it, and you can already see how kind of really shiny and beautiful
it should come up to
it comes through.
It's fun. Ian enjoys it. When the leather comes in, me and Ian inspect it all, and it has to all be polished up so you can make sure that the leather's to the high enough standard. And this is our Bakers. And we use 3 colours in Bakers. We have olive, we have natural, and we have conker. It's really traditionally tanned. It's just beautiful. It has a really, your listeners won't get this, but a really, really unique smell.
Yeah, it's very earthy
very,
and
very unique,
foresty.
They use oak bark is one of their tannins that comes from trees in Devon. The cows come from Devon. It's very, very British. Doesn't get much more British than that. Everything comes from the land in and around the tannery.
So how did you go from September 22 being in a very nice shed in your back garden to where we're sat now, which is your office?
Yeah.
In
Which is
a
bigger than
large...
Which is big. My office is probably maybe about the same size as the workshop, maybe a bit bigger.
I mean, it's a decent-sized office.
It is, yeah.
Adjacent to a very large factory.
Yeah.
Full of people making leather goods.
Absolutely. So I heard of Whitehouse Cox was closing their doors, and like I said, reached out to Stephen.
Whitehouse Cox, a local leather company.
Whitehouse Cox, yeah. They were based probably about a mile and a half down the road. They'd always been based kind of in around Walsall. I hadn't known much about them until for such a huge British manufacturing company, I hadn't heard too much about them. And anyway, heard about them closing, thought maybe I can just take on some machinery or maybe one person to come and help me do some of this work. So I reached out to Stephen, who was the owner and the director, and he said, why don't you come over and we can have a chat? And I did, and just instantly was just blown away. It was incredible. Just looked similar to what's out there currently now, because we took on most of their machinery in the end. And after having a talk with him and a talk with Jackie, who was his factory manager and is now my factory supervisor manager, I was just like, this is too special. Like, there's too much experience here. If all of these people are made redundant, and effectively end of December that year, the factory was closing and everyone was effectively redundant. I was like, if all these people are redundant, they're all going to drift. There's not another place for them to go. There's all this knowledge and amazing experience is just going to be lost. Will people even find jobs? And so I sort of thought, I come away from that thinking I'd love to do something on this scale. I was kind of terrified by the idea of it, but also excited by it. Spoke to Lou, and she was, if we can, we should do it. Let's just kind of throw everything at it. We didn't have enough to do it, so saw some financing and some investment, and it kind of just took off very, very, very quickly from there. I actually got everyone to meet me and point in that direction, because it's over there at the Walsall Leather Museum on a Saturday morning, and said, this is my plan. I'm offering you all a job, everyone here now. I'm pretty much offering you all a job right now. I didn't even have the building at the time. We hadn't even found a building at the time. I hadn't even seen this place. I was like, this is a big call, but I'm really, really keen that we're going to do this. I'm going to make it work. And then very luckily this came available, and I jumped on it very quickly. And then I spent all of December just trying to get this place ready for the contractors to come in. I remember it was -7 degrees. I had COVID. There was no heating in the building, and I was in here painting all the walls. Absolutely rotten, woolly hat, coat, like 4 layers, just painting all the walls, trying to get it ready, because the following Monday, all of the sewing machines and everything was going to start getting delivered in here. And so it was just this really wild, spending sort of 12, 14 hours here, trying to get the place ready so that we could actually open the doors on the 1st of Feb.
Do you ever have any sleepless nights,
I
Alex?
don't sleep. Don't sleep, one, because we have an 18-month-old, but also there's a lot going on all the time. There's obviously, it's quite a big risk to start a company with 27 people that's not known, that has like no history to it. So yeah, I have quite a lot of sleepless nights, but a lot of that is also sort of excitement about stuff I might want to do. Like, I'll have an idea about a bag or whatever it might be, and then I struggle to switch off from that. So then until that's kind of processed in my brain, I don't sleep. But yeah, I have a lot of sleepless nights for good and bad reasons.
Hi, if you're enjoying the show and want to support our makers and manufacturers, please hit the subscribe or follow button. If you're listening on Apple, hit the stars and rate the show. It takes a small moment but makes a big difference. Thanks. Right, back to the chat. Doreen, you're a legend around here. Everyone keeps talking about you.
I don't think I am.
Dor tends to be one of our teachers and has done this for how many years, I don't want to say.
On and off, 45, 50 years, but I haven't done it continually. I have had breaks. Yeah.
45.
You don't look old enough to have been doing this for 45, 50 years. So, Doreen, can you just tell us a little about what you're doing? Just explain what's happening.
Well, the belts come from here and the splits, the strands are cut, and then we have to dip them into a softening solution that's mixed with water, and then basically each belt's got a different pattern. This one's a nine-strand interlink, which is over 2, under 1, over 1, over 2, under 1, like knitting.
I'm going to pretend I know what you're saying there, and I'm going to lie. It looks fiendishly complicated.
Under 1, over 1, then you pull. Over 2, under 1, over 1, and pull. Over 2, under 1, over 1, and that's all I do.
That is one of those things that you've made look really easy,
But it is, yeah.
but
It
if I
takes a
tried it,
while.
it would be an absolute car crash.
No, I don't think he would. I think he'd be fine.
I'm not suggesting you do anything other than perfection, but occasionally do you ever get something wrong? And you're like, oh no, I'm going to have to unwind that. Or are you is the muscle memory so perfected that you could do it virtually asleep?
Well, the 9-strand herringbone, that one I can do. That one I could shut my eyes and do. I could read a book. I used to read a book doing them years ago. I used to actually read while I was plaiting because it was just...
Wow.
I can't now. Can't see the print.
She does make it look very easy.
Yeah,
I bet it's not.
It's really not, no. And I think Chad makes it look easy now as well, but he's been doing that now every day since he's been here. He knocked on the door one day and just said, I've just finished, there's a leather college down the road in Walsall. I was looking for a job. Couldn't have been more nervous. And he timed it perfectly because I just decided we needed someone else in the belt section. I was like, yeah, come in, let's go. Have you got your stuff with you? Let's go. And then he was working with Ian for a while, and then I saw him hovering around door quite a bit, and I said, do you want to learn to plait? And he said, yeah.
Literally came and knocked on the door of the factory. Are there many opportunities for leather workers in this area?
No, not really. The reason we are here is because of an old company closing their doors, and it was the last sort of large company within the area, which I thought was a real shame. So I saw it as an opportunity, but also quite a shame, an opportunity to grab all this amazing experience and knowledge, but also a shame that, it was a 4-generation old company was closing their doors. We're probably the biggest company in this area. I say probably, I'm pretty confident we are. 20 years ago, there would have been, in a triangle of about 2 miles, there would have been about 10, 15 companies this size, but it's just, with all the manufacturing moving abroad in the past sort of 2 decades, and then just the cost of living crisis, everything else, everyone seems to be closing their doors. And so my dream for Beorma is to kind of grow it and bring more of the community in, have more people from a younger generation who are keen to learn the trade and be in the trade like Dor for, 40 years plus. Be amazing.
Was there ever a moment where you thought, I might have made a mistake here?
No, not. I have doubts and worries and is this actually going to work? Which is, I'm sure, very natural. But no, not a mistake, because regardless of what happened, I'm confident this will be a long-term success. But regardless of what happens, at least we've kind of kept this going in some form or another for however many years it goes on for. And I've had an amazing experience, which I've learnt more than I could have ever possibly guessed I would learn along the way. And we're only really 12 months in, so definitely not. I don't regret it or think I've made a mistake ever. I just have a general buzz from coming to work every day.
It's interesting that there is this, and I don't know if you have heard the Adrian Williams, the Pashley bike owner, on the show, where he was talking about, kind of why he ran Pashley, and one of the things that he strongly alluded to, and it definitely feels the same to you, or I'm getting the same impression with you, is this societal responsibility, this sense of, kind of there are economic opportunities. If they're not, it's not viable.
Yeah.
So there's the economic opportunities, but equally, kind of, you've mentioned a few times this sense of feeling strongly that, I didn't want these people just to be lost these skills to disappear.
Yeah.
Actually, it needs to be preserved.
Absolutely.
Is that very active in your mind?
I think it's one of the driving parts of all of this, really. And as you say, a business needs to eventually make some money for it to be viable. Walsall itself has been a leather hub since the 18th century, and as we sort of mentioned earlier, a lot of that has been pushed abroad over the years. If you went back 20 years, you couldn't throw a stone without hitting a leather factory in and around Walsall, whereas now there are maybe 3, including us. Walsall's, one of the highest sort of, I think it's NEAT, it stands for sort of not in education or employment. It's one of the highest in the West Midlands because of that, really, because of all these sort of leatherworking businesses have been closed down and pushed abroad. So for me, it's really, really important, and one of the driving factors is to try and grow a company that's as big, if not bigger, than the old factory, and can employ more and more people, and kind of, it's, I don't know, I feel a bit egotistical saying it, but kind of give something back to the community and kind of be a pillar of the community where people can come and learn a trade they'll have forever. They can have a job for as long as they want a job for, and put Walsall back on the map, or keep it on the map at least, for making beautiful, beautiful leather products.
Yeah, it's quite something just looking out over all of these colleagues of yours just working away, crafting with their hands.
It's amazing. It's absolutely incredible. I think we worked out it was about 700 years of experience on the factory floor between the sort of 25 staff, which is pretty incredible.
Just the 700 years of experience. Did you say that there was a lady down here who came from the leather college?
Yes,
I was quite
Caprice,
interested in that. Would Caprice have a quick word?
We could ask her, yeah.
We could ask her.
So she was in college with Chad, and when I gave Chad sort of brought Chad in and gave him a role, Caprice rang up and said, "Is there anything else?" Caprice, do you mind if we have a quick chat to you? I'm blown away with how quickly she's picked it up and how amazing she is. I'll move away and stop embarrassing her in a second, let you guys chat, but yeah, she's amazing.
She's looking a bit embarrassed now.
Yeah, I'll move away now.
Caprice, thanks for chatting to me. Tell me about opportunities. Do you feel there are lots of opportunities for you, or is it quite difficult in terms of finding opportunities at the moment for you and kind of your friends?
I feel like if you wanted to go and work into leather specifically, it would be like this was a rare opportunity, but I'd say it would be quite hard to, because leather's not really massive as it was, say, like 10 years ago. So
what kind of jobs are your friends doing?
My best friend also works in leather. She works at a different one. My other best mate is here. He's over there. So.
Hang on, all your friends are in the leather industry.
I used to work at McDonald's before this, so coming from working in retail to working here is really different.
And by different, you mean?
Less stressful.
Caprice, it was lovely chatting to you. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
What are you listening to?
A true crime podcast.
Have you listened to another podcast called The Factory Next Door? Have you heard of it? Oh dear, she just shakes her head. Oh dear, ouch. Tell me about the name. It's
Beorma.
a distinctive name.
Yeah, so we were looking for a very long time for a name. So Beorma was the Saxon chief who apparently founded Birmingham. That was his name. And I just sort of instantly fell in love with it, and I was like, that's it, that's the name. And because no one could pronounce it, everyone remembers it, which is always a good thing too.
Beorma.
Yeah, Beorma. Well, that's how I pronounce it anyway.
And then that's how it should be pronounced.
Very true.
I always like, at the end of the chat, I always like to kind of circle back to the start.
Okay.
Your journey started a 13-year-old building a bag.
Yeah.
For his brother.
Yeah.
His older brother.
Yeah.
Have you built him a bag from Beorma?
He is going to get one, but if you listen
to
this
not
now,
yet,
you're going to kill us. So absolutely. So this is because we haven't released any bags yet. So this is our first bag. So hopefully he won't listen to this and it'll spoil the surprise. I'll have to do some participation in the making of that bag, I'm sure. Whether it's Kerry allows me on a sewing machine for 5 minutes and then redoes it all when I walk away. At least I can say I've done the work.
Alex, it's been lovely talking to you, and very best of luck with Beorma.
Thank you very much. It's been amazing. Thank you for having us.
Okay, number 8 on our list of the greatest products we make, the Plaited Belt by Beorma. It's with great pleasure that I put it into the shed of greatness. If you've got any ideas on what to go on the list, do drop me an email, steve@thefactorynextdoor.com, or message me on Instagram. Just search for The Factory Next Door. Thank you to Alex, and obviously a big thank you to you for letting me join you for half an hour. If you get a moment, do hit the follow or subscribe button, rate the show, hit those stars. It really does make a difference. Edie and Willow, David, thanks enormously for your reviews. It genuinely means a lot. Until we next speak, bye.